You've decided to offer a natural diet to your dog or cat, but are you doing it the right way? In this video, you will discover the most common mistakes that beginner owners make when starting BARF, and how to avoid them before they harm your pet's health. Many believe that raw meat alone is enough. Others think that leftover food or generic recipes are enough. The truth is that BARF requires knowledge, correct proportions, and much more than good intentions. Learn what not to do when transitioning to natural food, how to identify silent imbalances, what ingredients can be dangerous even though they are natural, and why following fads can put your pet's life at risk. If you want to offer the best to your animal, watch it until the end. Because those who love are informed, and those who are informed really care. The decision to abandon industrialized food and offer a BARF diet to your dog or cat may seem simple at first glance. After all, who wouldn't want to see their pet eating natural, fresh, and preservative-free ingredients? But what many owners don't know is that the biggest risk of this transition is not in the food itself, but in what was not done correctly. BARF is not just improvised comfort food. It is a nutritional methodology based on biology in exact proportions, on digestive physiology. And a mistake, even a small one, can trigger serious consequences, from nutritional deficiencies to silent poisoning. The problem is that most beginner tutors driven by the best of intentions make exactly the same mistakes. They believe they are taking care of it, but without knowing it, they may be unbalancing the animal's body from the inside. The first and perhaps most common mistake, thinking that pure meat is enough. Many tutors start BARF by giving only raw, ground or chopped chicken breasts every day. But what appears to be a rich protein choice is actually an unbalanced nutritional bomb. BARF food is not just muscle meat. It needs to follow specific proportions of fleshy bone, viscera, meat, vegetables, and eventually natural supplements. Pure meat alone does not deliver calcium, does not deliver fiber, does not provide the enzymes present in the liver or the minerals in the viscera. And without this, the animal begins to show subtle signs: pasty feces, acidic breath, intermittent itching, hair loss, and all this before any examination shows any change. In other words, the error does not appear immediately, but installs itself as a progressive silent failure. Another very serious mistake is to copy diets from other animals without personalizing. Just because it worked for the neighbor's dog or an influencer's cat doesn't mean it will be healthy for yours. Each animal has different weight, age, level of physical activity, clinical history, and metabolism. A senior dog with a kidney problem needs a different diet than an active puppy. An overweight neutered cat cannot follow the same feeding protocol as a growing feline. BARF is not a magic formula. It is fine-tuning, and many tutors forget this when they access random recipes on the internet without any professional guidance. The lack of hygienic preparation is also among the biggest dangers. When dealing with raw food, the owner needs to understand that he is not just offering food, he is handling organic matter with microbiological risk. It is not an exaggeration. A poorly sanitized container, a freezer with temperature fluctuations, a board used for meat and vegetables without proper sanitization. All of this can introduce pathogens such as Salmonella, Campylobacter, and other microorganisms that affect not only the animal but also the humans in the household. That is why the preparation of a BARF diet requires protocol. Wash hands, utensils, store correctly, thaw under refrigeration. Do not reuse leftovers that have already been cross-contaminated. These are invisible details that, when ignored, destroy the entire health proposal of natural food. And then comes the emotional mistake: humanizing food too much. Giving fruit every day, including ingredients because the pet likes it, replacing important items with more appetizing foods, or believing that a vegetable is good just because it is healthy for humans. A classic example: avocado. It's nutritious for us, but potentially toxic to dogs and cats. Another: garlic. Although used in microdosing by professionals experienced in therapeutic protocols, its indiscriminate use can be dangerous. Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's automatically safe. And just because the animal seems to like it doesn't mean that the food is good. A dog or cat's body is different from ours, and what it wants is not always what it needs. At the beginning of the transition, it is also common to see tutors offering different foods each day, as if they were making a varied menu to stimulate the pet. But this, for a digestive system that was used to years of dry food, can be a shock. Diarrhea, vomiting, refusal to feed, or gastrointestinal hypersensitivity arise precisely because of a lack of progressive adaptation. The introduction of the BARF diet needs to be gradual, based on light proteins, enzyme adjustments, and stool monitoring with each change. It is not a question of variety, but of controlled adaptation. And the beginner tutor, in his eagerness to please, ends up interrupting the body's natural process of adjusting to a new nutritional pattern. Finally, there is the most invisible mistake of all, believing that, if something is wrong, the animal will show it. But many nutritional imbalances only reveal themselves when they have already been chronically installed. A dog can live 2 or 3 years with zinc deficiency before it has skin lesions. A cat may experience progressive muscle loss due to the absence of taurine before it manifests any visible symptoms. And when the tutor realizes, he is already correcting a condition and no longer preventing it. Therefore, professional monitoring is indispensable. Veterinary nutritionists exist for a reason. They know the proportions, the needs, the risks, and the monitoring protocols. BARF is not a fad. It's a biological science that deals with real life and demands responsibility. Among tutors who decide to start BARF on their own, a subtle pitfall often goes unnoticed, relying too much on generic tables. On the internet, there are several calculators and guides that suggest food quantities based only on the animal's weight. But this, in isolation, is extremely risky. An overweight dog may have the same body weight as a muscular dog, but with totally different nutritional needs. A sedentary cat living in an apartment may need a much lower caloric intake than another active and anxious stray cat. And this is where the mistake lies. The tutor follows the number on the scale, but forgets about the pet's metabolic individuality. Another very frequent misconception is to believe that the more natural, the better. This logic seems to make sense, until it bumps into biochemical reality. Certain raw vegetables, for example, may contain anti-nutrients that interfere with mineral absorption. This is the case with spinach, raw beets, or excess kale, which can affect calcium or iron absorption. Likewise, excess liver, which is extremely rich in vitamin A, can generate hypervitaminosis, causing silent liver poisoning. The key to BARF lies in balance, not abundance. More is not better. It is better to offer it in the right measure, with strategic variations, in feeding cycles that respect the animal's physiology. It's also important to understand that supplementation isn't a choice. It's a necessity in many cases. Even with fresh ingredients and variety, the diet may not supply all the essential micronutrients. Deficiency of zinc, manganese, vitamin D, or iodine can occur even in seemingly rich diets. And here comes another mistake. Tutors who are afraid to use supplements because they believe that it contaminates the natural proposal. What contaminates health is the prolonged absence of a nutrient that the body requires. Natural supplements, manipulated based on tests or dietary profile, are allies, not villains. And that's why monitoring with a qualified professional makes all the difference between an intuitive diet and a functional diet. A rarely mentioned critical point is neglect of bones. Many beginners are either afraid to offer bones due to the risk of choking or offer them incorrectly. Raw, fleshy, meaty bones with an adequate proportion of meat are safe for the vast majority of dogs, as long as they are introduced correctly. Cooked, brittle, or unsupervised bones pose a real risk of perforation. And the cats? While less likely to gnaw on large bones, they also need calcium, and that's where specific grinds or substitutions with crushed eggshells, bone meal, or natural supplements come in. A BARF without a source of calcium is not BARF. It's a dangerous imbalance disguised as healthy eating. Another silent mistake is to keep the pet fasting for a long time or adopt intermittent fasting protocols without technical knowledge. Some owners believe that fasting detoxifies or simulates wildlife, but they forget that the metabolism of the domesticated dog and cat is not the same as that of a wolf or wild feline. Poor fasting can generate hypoglycemia, acidosis, or worsening of hidden conditions, especially in animals with a history of gastric sensitivity or hormonal problems. There are protocols that use fasting in a therapeutic way, but always with monitoring and personalization. At home, on your own, the risk is much greater than the benefit. And then there is the most dangerous mistake, relying only on the external appearance of the animal. A dog with shiny coats and high energy may internally be suffering from profound deficiencies. A cat that eats well and is active may have critical levels of B12 or taurine. True health is biochemical, not visual. That is why, even after adopting BARF correctly, it is necessary to perform periodic tests: blood count, liver function, urinalysis, micronutrient evaluation. Because only blood reveals what the eyes do not see. And that's the difference between intuition and prevention. Finally, an important warning. The beginner tutor is often frustrated at the beginning of the BARF because he expects immediate gratitude from the animal. Expect him to eat with enthusiasm, to fall in love with the new smell, to feel better overnight. But the truth is that many pets find it strange, refuse, lick suspiciously, or simply ignore food in the first few days. This does not mean that the food is wrong. It means that the body is in the process of transition. The animal's sense of smell and taste are reprogramming patterns. It's a phase. And the tutor who gives up quickly because he doesn't see immediate results loses the chance to offer years of future vitality because of a few days of initial resistance. In the universe of BARF food, patience is as important as food. Respect for the body's time, care for details, and the awareness that each meal builds, from the inside out, the health of your pet. This is how the beginner tutor stops being just someone well-intentioned and becomes a true guardian of his pet's health. As the days go by and the tutor begins to become familiar with the preparation of the BARF diet, a common pitfall arises: the feeling of mastery. The routine seems consolidated, the animal accepts food well, and the tutor feels that he has finally mastered the technique. It is at this exact moment that many begin to relax. They stop weighing the ingredients. They start to use eye meters. They fail to note behavioral variations or changes in stool. And little by little, without realizing it, the precision that made the diet safe is being replaced by an imprecise practice based on convenience. The problem? The animal's body does not adapt to accumulated errors. He reacts, but not always with obvious signs. Sometimes with urinary changes, changes in intestinal pH, accumulation of visceral fat, or loss of lean mass. And when this becomes visible, time has already been lost. Another risk at this stage is overconfidence. The tutor has heard of the forbidden ingredients, but believes that a little piece won't hurt. He begins to introduce leftovers from his own food: a piece of cheese, some rice with garlic, a citrus fruit. But the dog and cat's bodies are not designed to deal with preservatives, spices, condiments, or human leftovers. BARF feeding is a precise construction where each component has a physiological function, and it only takes one wrong element, repeated frequently, to unbalance everything. The well-intentioned owner becomes a silent risk when he starts to make food decisions based on emotion, and not on nutritional logic. In addition, there is an external factor that few consider: the seasonality of food. During the summer, certain ingredients oxidize faster. During the winter, the animal's digestion may require metabolic adjustments. Older dogs, cats with a sedentary profile, females in heat, or animals in post-surgical recovery need adaptations in their diet according to the moment, and those who don't monitor it don't notice. BARF is not static. It changes with the animal, with the season, with the clinical state, with the results of the tests. And that is why the tutor needs to be under constant observation. Not to become obsessed, but to be conscious. Live food requires an attentive tutor. A very common question among beginners is about the introduction of new ingredients. When and how to do it. The correct answer is one at a time, with observation of at least 2 to 3 days between each change. Thus, if there is any reaction, such as soft stools, vomiting, or behavioral changes, the tutor can identify the person responsible. Introducing several new foods at the same time is like trying to figure out which switch turned off the light. after turning them all off at once. Accuracy is what separates the beginner tutor from the prepared tutor, and this precision is built with time, patience, and responsibility. Another sensitive topic for those who are just starting out: fear. The fear of making mistakes, of causing harm to the pet, of not being able to balance the diet. This fear is natural, and instead of being denied, it should be used as fuel to seek correct information. The mistake is not in feeling fear, it is in settling for ignorance. There are trained professionals, courses, reliable sources, serious communities of support. You don't have to walk alone. The tutor who recognizes his limits and seeks help is already one step ahead. Because natural nutrition isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. And finally, a reminder that needs to be said: eating naturally is an act of love, but also of discipline. It is looking at each meal as an investment in your pet's health. It is understanding that food is not just taste. It is biochemical language. It is a signal to the immune system. It's a command for hormones. It is cellular memory. What your dog or cat eats today will reflect on how he will age, how he will react to diseases, how he will live. Adopting BARF is not following a fad. It is to make a commitment to care with knowledge. And when this happens, the tutor is no longer just someone who feeds and becomes an active part in the well-being and longevity of his partner. Because at the end of the day, the question is not, what does my pet like to eat? But yes, what my pet really needs to live longer, better, and in real health. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on natural nutrition, real health, and longevity for dogs and cats. Leave your like if this content helped you. Share with other tutors who are just starting out in BARF. You can avoid serious mistakes. Comment here. What is your biggest question about natural food?